Hi Global Studies. Today's YouTube advising video is about a couple of quirks and weird things and just kind of strange stuff you might notice when you're checking your major and GE progress check on gold that you may find yourself being concerned about. And most of it is really not an issue. There's just some extra steps that you'll want to know about behind the scenes. But I will show you a couple of things that will help you interpret if you think something might be going wrong. How it's probably still on track, and then if not, how to reach out and get it resolved. So overview and big ideas. Your major and GE progress check on gold is still your best way to be aware of your progress in the major, but like we said, there are some quirks, there's some weird things in the way that our major requirements get displayed that might look a little confusing, or worst case, it might look like you haven't fulfilled something, but you actually already did fulfill it. So this is kind of intended to help you figure out if you're tempted to sign up for extra classes you don't need, or if you think that something went wrong in classes you did take. Here's a couple tricks you can check to make sure that things are correct, and if they're not, sort of how to get them resolved. So some of the really common ones we'll go through. We'll look at mistakes on how the registrar might have coded you as a global studies major. This is particularly an issue if you joined the major somewhere in the 2019 to 2020 academic year and you were signed up for the 2018 to 2019 major requirements. We'll talk about why. If you have some things you're looking at with the foreign language requirements, sometimes that can display a little strangely. Especially if you did not just do the regular taking classes to fulfill the requirement, if you did some sort of extra something, a placement test or something like that, or you're using high school credit, there can be some strange things with the way that displays. We'll remind you that there's two different paths that you can follow for the upper division major, and sometimes that gets a little confusing. I'll also show you some tricks for what to look at if you think you're missing a class that you took that you thought was going to count towards something in the major. Very likely, in most cases, you probably did take a class that will count towards the major. It's just hiding, so I'll show you how to find that. And then just how to think about petitions and sort of what the process is on that. We'll kind of end with some notes about what to do about these various problems, as well as how to recognize if there's an actual issue or if it's just something that will just resolve itself over time. Maybe you need to request a petition, kind of that stuff. So first thing, I just want to give a quick recap. How do you find and read your major and GE progress check on gold? This is something you absolutely want to know how to do so that way you can be really aware of if things are looking incorrect or wrong, or if they're looking correct and you're on track. So just as a quick recap, you get to your major and GE progress check by going to gold. You click on progress, major and GE progress checks, and then you run the degree check, making sure it's on the run major progress check, making sure it's global studies. You can also do this if you have a second major, double major. You want to, in most cases, click the use in progress courses option, although you can turn that on and off to kind of see how your future courses or courses you haven't gotten final grades on yet can kind of affect things. Mostly you want to leave that turned on though, and then you click run this progress check. And then I always recommend the key areas to check would be your units completed or left to complete, especially upper division units. You want to keep your eye on that. You want to check for GE completion, but for what we're really here for right now is major requirement areas, making sure those are starting to look complete. And then the all credit accepted at the section at the very bottom basically shows everything you've gotten credit for, whether it's transfer units, whether it's UCSB classes, whether it's a lot of the time placement test credits. So if you're ever not sure if something has been added to your overall units and your overall degree progress, that's the best place to look for everything that you might have gotten credit for. And then just as a reminder, this is a quick visual of you'll know you're on the right track in your major and GE progress check when you see kind of this typewriter font and you see the red X's and the green check marks and the in progress clocks, and that kind of demonstrates the different places in your degree requirements where you might still have either something you're completely done with, something you're not completely done with, the red X, or the in progress clock to show something that you're currently completing with either current classes or scheduled for the future classes. And so that was kind of a quick rundown. Over here on the left side, we do have that version in words if you wanted to have that up and pause your YouTube video and kind of do that check while you're clicking through. Take yourself on a tour, you can do that. And then just please let me know if anything seems really weird or incorrect on your major GE progress check. I do recommend that you watch the rest of this video first just to, again, see those common things that for a lot of people look like they're incorrect, but they're not necessarily incorrect. They might just need some adjusting, or they're there, you're getting credit for it, it just doesn't quite show in the way that we would like it to show, but you're still getting credit for it. One other big thing to keep in mind, this is mostly going to focus on your actual like subject area requirements for global studies and the major requirements, but keep in mind that the total units that are displayed up here, in most cases, that's what you're going to go by. So if you have it fixed in your mind that you think you're closer to being done, or you think you've completed enough units, but this unit count is showing differently, be really, really careful, and you mostly want to go by what this area is showing. Very rarely will you see any errors come up in the unit requirement section, but for global studies, you will often see, or semi-frequently see, some things that look like errors, even if they aren't quite errors. But just, you know, good caveat to keep in mind, that unit requirement count is going to be something you mostly want to have confidence in as you plan your remaining quarters before you get ready to graduate. All right, so common issue number one, this is really only going to be an issue for students who changed their major for the most part in the 2019 to 2020 academic year. I talked to those of you who were thinking of changing your major about whether or not you were eligible to go on to the older major requirements, the 2019 to 2020, the 2018 to 2019 requirements. That's the blue sheet, if you can kind of picture that in your mind. Those are the ones that do not require you to complete a pre-major section before you can move into the full major, but a couple things might have happened with that. So if you're in your major and GE progress check and you have been told, and you've signed up for the major being told that you did not have to complete a pre-major requirement or a set of pre-major requirements, typically that's Global 1 and 2 and the 3 history classes that come from the same cluster before you can do anything else in the major. But let's say you were told that, but then you're seeing it in your major GE progress check that it's saying you have to complete or have not yet completed pre-major requirements. Two things could be happening with that. There's two situations where that likely might have been the case for you. That might have been the case for you if you're a fall 2019 junior transfer or potentially a fall 2020 junior transfer. Both groups of students got the option at one point earlier in their time at UCSB to request that I set up the system to shift you to the full major, to bypass that pre-major option. Remember, you did get the choice of between the two major requirements, but UCSB auto enrolls you onto the pre-major requirements, even though you get the choice. Now, I offered you that opportunity. It's possible you missed the email or you chose not to respond to it or whatever. So that might be happening. That's one possibility. The other possibility is you actually did sign off on your change of major sheet, your change of major petition with specifically these 2018 to 2019 requirements requested, but the Office of the Registrar made a mistake, which is, I know, a little annoying, but it's easily fixable. I just need you to call my attention to it so I can put your name on the list, and then periodically I contact the Office of the Registrar and they fix it up. Ultimately, not a big deal. It's just something you're going to want to get shifted, notice it, tell it to me that I can then go in and check so I can make sure that you get on the list of people we need to fix that for. In both instances, basically, it's just you reach out to the undergraduate advisor in global studies with your name and prom number and let us know that you might be seeing a mistake in your major requirements. I'm going to give you a couple of visuals that will help you pinpoint if this might be the case for you. If this is the case for you, you very likely will be seeing something like this towards the top of your major GE progress check. So for progress check. If you're seeing this combination, then you're fine. Global studies, 2018 major requirements, totally normal. This will also be normal to see in the future when you are out of the pre-major into the full major. You'll see global studies major and whatever is the year of when you started in the major. Not necessarily, right? The university requirements is the year you started at UCSB, but the major requirements would be like the year that you actually started and signed up for the major requirements. So that would be looking correct. This one would be incorrect. This combo in this particular academic year, 2019 to 2020, this one would be a little bit off if you were told that you could move into the full major. Reason is, when we started our students on the pre-global studies major, they would be seeing a slightly different version of this. But if you were one of the people that were given the opportunity to bypass the pre-major, you should not be seeing these major requirements with the pre-global studies. You should be seeing plain global studies, full global studies with the 2018 requirements. So yes, just kind of be looking out for that combo. The other way to sort of verify it is if you scroll down to where the actual major requirements are, you will notice that it'll say you need to complete pre-major requirements and prep for the major requirements and upper division requirements. But if you were told and you had verified with us that you were allowed to skip those, you shouldn't be seeing those. You should only be seeing the prep for the major and the upper division major section. So basically just reach out, we can fix it. I don't know until you tell me that that's what's going on. Common issue number 2. So our foreign language requirements, oftentimes because it has so many different custom ways that you can fulfill it, sometimes that looks a little weird. Here are a few things that might be happening to you. If you submitted a high school transcript to the Office of Admissions that you wanted to use for that one additional year, that second part of the language credit, or maybe you did it to the Chinese department for full native speaker clearance, that's mostly just applicable to my international students, here's what might be happening. It can take time. If that's what you did, it can take sometimes a really long time for any results to show up. And then once the results show up, then Global Studies, have to file a petition to pull all that evidence together. You will not see the results of that in your major and GE progress check just by sending in your transcript. That is like a multi-step process. It takes a few extra things that have to happen in order before I am able to see the evidence, and then I can file the petition. So if this is the case, if you did this, give it a bit, and then you can request that petition sometime in your like second or third to last quarter at UCSB. So let's say you're planning on graduating in spring of a particular year at UCSB. You've sent in your information with your high school transcript and you want to use that to get cleared for some part of your foreign language requirement. It's best just to give us a heads up about that somewhere around fall or winter quarter. If you wait until the very last quarter, that's okay too, as long as the evidence has already been sent, right? As long as the transcript has already been sent to the Office of Admissions or been submitted to the Chinese department. You don't want to wait until your last quarter to start that process, but just know that if you've already done that process, the thing where we do the petition, that can happen later on. But it's nice just to put it on our notice maybe a quarter or two before you plan to graduate, so that way we have time to petition it, and then it'll show up eventually in your records. But again, patience is the key with that one. Specifically for my Chinese native speakers or my international students, you're actually going to see the next slide for a couple of special notes I wanted to share with you. So hang on, I will have some more information for you that's specific to your situation. If you satisfied part of the requirement through a placement test with that languages department, or you used transfer credits from a community college or a different college, or through study abroad program credits, here's what might be happening with that. If that's the case for you, think about how recently did you either submit that transcript or take that placement test. These also do take a lot of time sometimes to show up in your records. There's multiple computer systems that kind of have to connect with each other, but eventually they will show up. Non-California community college credits, including study abroad ones, once they're processed into your overall degree credits, we will have to specially petition them with us. There will be some more information about that on the last slide in this presentation, towards the end of this presentation. But most regular California community college credits for language should show up automatically once your transcript gets fully evaluated by the Office of Admissions and is added into your records. That's kind of the difference between those two. Now, my Spanish native heritage speakers, you're also going to have some information specific to you on the next slide. So be ready for that. Let's say you took upper division courses for the advanced part of the one additional year requirement. Remember, for that one additional year of your foreign language requirement, you get to choose if you want to go with advanced classes in the same language or beginning classes in a different language. If you're doing the advanced option, it's just something really big to know is that only some of those classes are pre-programmed to automatically show up in that area. You'll typically have to request that we petition them for you if they're not showing up automatically in that area. Basically, you can look for them down in the all credit accepted section all the way at the bottom of your major GE progress check, and then just verify that they're there, verify you have letter grades on them, and then just keep in mind they do have to be taught in that language, not just upper division classes from that department that are taught in English. They do have to actually be taught in that language in order for us to be able to accept them in that area. So that could also be why they're not showing up. But if you know for sure that you took it in that language and they were from that department and they were taught in that language and they're not showing up in that area, That's just a sign that they haven't been pre-approved for that section, but we can talk about approving them through that petition process. And then finally, this happens with people who took more than one language. If you were doing that option where you do the 2 years of one language plus 1 year of another language option, just know the system will sometimes just let those classes sit there and hang out around the foreign language requirement, but they may not actually drift into the part that's like looking like the foreign language requirement until you're done with the whole series. Basically, that quarter 6 requirement, for example, is only programmed to accept something that is actually quarter 6 or an equivalent of quarter 6. Everything else will kind of just sit close by, but it won't actually show that you're working on or fulfilling anything towards that foreign language requirement until you hit that quarter 6 or that quarter 3 in a lot of cases for that second part of the requirement. So again, just this is where you're going to check for them in the all credit accepted. Eventually the issue will resolve itself once you've taken all the classes that you need. If not, that's something that we catch to when we do final grad checks in your last quarter when you've declared candidacy. So as long as the classes are there, all the way to quarter 6 for the one language, plus all the way to quarter 3, or Portuguese 16A and B, Italian 16A and 16B if you're using those options. Just know that though eventually they will put themselves into the right place, but they don't usually do that until you're totally done. Special notes for international students and native speakers. I did promise you a little extra information. My people to whom this does not apply, you can skip ahead just a little bit. My Chinese speakers, there's typically 3 ways recently that you might have proven your fluency to UCSB so that we can then petition that in global studies to use that for your global studies requirements. So I wanted to remind you just what those options are and a few things to think about with them. So for some of you, if you came straight from, or if you have a high school transcript from a fully Chinese language high school, you didn't do any language in the United States, you didn't do any high school in the United States. Many of you submitted a high school transcript to the Office of Admissions, especially if you came here as a first-year student. It gets added to your records along with any other transfer credits you might have. Keep in mind, my community college transfer students who are international students, your high school transcript does not follow you from your community college. You have to actually send that over a second time. It has to be sealed, official, straight from your high school to you, in most cases, to the Office of Admissions. Once it's in there, this takes some time, then we can apply that petition through global studies. But again, it doesn't happen instantly. Sometimes it's even months before everything comes together. So just make sure you start that option early. If you submitted your high school transcript to Professor Guan or another instructor in the Chinese department, he puts in 2 placement test scores for you. So this is ultimately achieving the same goal, but it's done a little bit differently. So you can look for evidence of these placement test scores by looking down in the all credit accepted section of your major and GE progress check. You'll see 2 different placement scores, one that has a quarter 6 score. That one actually will automatically stick into the right place in the requirements that are listed for the foreign language requirement, but the second one does not. We're working on getting that one so that it can automatically display as fulfilling that second area of the foreign language requirement. We haven't gotten there yet. It may happen soon, or it may still take a few months for that to appear. But just know, you can always verify that the credit has already been put in for you by looking down in the all credit accepted section on your major and GE progress check. You're looking for one that says Chinese quarter 6 and then something that says Chinese and then 4, the number 4. So that number 4 one goes along with the second part of the foreign language requirement. That one we will have to apply a petition for, but don't worry, I will be looking out for it for you during your last quarter. It's okay if that sits unfulfilled for a little while as long as that credit score is in there. But if it's not, you want to make sure you're making contact with Professor Guan so that he can do that for you. The other way that some people have done it in the past, this is really a less common option now. I just wanted to include it for anybody who's a student further along in the major who this might have been true for. A few of you might have met previously with another instructor of the Chinese department, and you might have gotten a fluency waiver form from me and then had them sign it after you had a one-on-one conversation in Chinese to sort of prove your fluency. The way that you process that, the way that you handle that is you email that back to the undergraduate advisor, that would be me in global studies, and then a petition is filed. But again, multi-step process, it does take time. Just because you got signed off by potentially an instructor in the Chinese department doesn't automatically mean that it's going to clear your language. So we have to do a few extra steps. But as long as you've submitted the evidence, we can then apply the petition. And then, yeah, that's just basically what I just said. Filing those petitions does take time, and it does not show up automatically in your records. Basically, the process is I apply the petitions somewhere closer to week 8 of each quarter, and then eventually they will be approved. If it's your last quarter, the priority does go for you as a graduating senior. Yours will be filed first, along with all the other graduating seniors. So it will be approved in time for you to graduate that quarter, but make sure that you did everything you needed to do to turn your stuff in so that we can then file that petition in time for you to graduate. Special notes for my Spanish native heritage exam takers. These are my people who, in a lot of cases, grew up speaking Spanish. It's still part of your cultural background, but maybe you don't regularly speak it. Maybe English is more your dominant language now. I just wanted to kind of remind you that when you sign up for and then take that native heritage exam, you might place out of Spanish 16A. 16A, if you take the exam and you place out of it, satisfies quarter 6 of Spanish. Sometimes you might be told you have to take Spanish 16A or you're ready to take Spanish 16A, in which case you can take 16A and then that counts as the quarter 6 requirement that fulfills it fully. There's also the option to take Spanish 16B, or maybe you scored so high on the exam that you completely cleared out of Spanish 16B. Spanish 16B is totally optional if you wanted to use this option. You could use Spanish 16B towards whether you take the class or you placed out by the exam credit. That can count towards the advanced option for the 1 additional year. Then because it would be 1 additional year, that's 1 quarter class right there. Then you would just need 2 additional quarter classes that are labeled advanced Spanish or upper division classes taught in Spanish fluently. But it won't affect how 16A does or does not give you credit for quarter 6. So some people think, oh, if I did the 16A, I have to take 16B in order for 16A to count. Not true. You just, 16A is sort of a separate thing, counts for quarter 6. 16B is an optional next step if you wanted to use it towards the advanced option for your 1 additional year requirement. You could actually absolutely, though, prefer if you wanted to and choose to do the 1 additional year of language with something else, with a different language if you wanted to do a different language. Still your choice. Common issue number 3. Now this one comes up a lot, and this actually will come up for everybody at some point. So there are 2 paths in the upper division major, and the major and GE progress check will show you both, but it can be a little confusing until you kind of think about it. In our upper division major, you need to complete at least 9 courses total, right? The core courses, 110, 120, 130, there's 3. And then 6 remaining classes that you split up between area 2 and area 3. And then just keeping in mind, the other part of that rule is at least 2 of your area 2 classes have to come from that A list. And that's the global studies upper division electives. But keep in mind, you have some choices. Those 6 courses can be split in 2 different ways. You can split them up like this with 4 courses in area 2, 2 courses in area 3, or you can split them up with 3 courses in area 2, 3 courses in area 3, so sort of an even 3 and 3 split. The tricky thing is this: your major and GE progress check will show you both, and it will typically show you both paths, both options, so that you can kind of see how it's going to affect you if you choose different classes across area 2 and area 3, how those stack up with the courses you've already taken as you fulfill those areas. But one big thing to know is that at some point, usually towards your last quarter or 2, or I guess for far enough along for the system to think that it's going to guess how you're going to fulfill that area, the system will start defaulting to showing the path it thinks that you're following. It doesn't always guess right, though. I've had students who are in their final quarter and the system is only showing them the 4 and 2 option, for example, but really they've been doing the 3 and 3 option all along. Sometimes it just happens that way, and then it can kind of freak people out if they didn't remember that there are those 2 different options. Even if the system starts sticking on one of these 2, you still have the right to continue the path of the other one. It's all there. As long as you're taking enough courses to fulfill that plan. And then this is where, again, you want to watch and be really familiar with all of your classes in that all credit accepted section. You can use that, plus just sort of keeping track manually on a major requirement sheet to make sure that you are meeting those. But ultimately, you don't need to do anything special to sort of change that path. It automatically will come out once we are doing final grad checks for you. I just wanted to show you a quick visual of that because that can look a little weird if we're just looking at it in words. So I'm going to show you both options. when you sign in for your major and GE progress check, you'll see something like this. There's our prep for the major, and then there's our upper division major. You want to go ahead and click open both checkboxes when you're checking these. Reason is you're going to see one version. Usually the first one runs it as the 3 and 3 option. So in this option, we see that the student has taken already 3 Area 2 classes, 2 of them from Area 2A, which is good. And then ultimately they're on path to take 3 potentially Area 3 classes. Right now they only have 2. So in this version of the path, they would need 1 more Area 3 class. And it looks like, based on what I see here, Middle East region classes, right? But let's run it this way too, right? With the second option, open up the second checkbox. Excuse me. This is the 4 and 2 option. Usually they put the 4 and 2 option as the second one. Under this option, this is the part that looks like it's been fulfilled with the 2 courses for the region, Area 3. And up here is the one that looks like it's missing 1 course. But ultimately, she's got the same number of courses both ways. It's just that the system is giving her 2 options for how she wants to finish these areas. She only needs 1 more course though, right? She doesn't need 2 more courses. She has the freedom to choose, depending on which path she wants to follow. 1 more Area 2 course, could be an A or a B course, right? Because she's already met her minimum for 2A. So she could choose a 3rd Area 2A or another Area 2B. Or she could choose 1 more Area 3 region class, something from the Middle East to complement the ones that she's already done. And then that would complete her with 3 and 3. So just again, to recap, you have choices. Common issue number 4. Many students reach out to me and say that you took a class that's on the major sheet, so why isn't it showing up in that major sheet area in my major and GE progress check? Here's why. Again, our major has a lot of areas for customization. You can choose a lot of different paths or options. We just saw one of those in the previous slide. This is especially true if you started on one option and then you switched and then you kept completing the area with other courses that satisfy a different part of that area. The system will always default to picking up the classes you took first, unless it starts to sense that you've taken enough classes in the other direction, and then eventually it might switch or not. So for example, let's say for the foreign language requirement, maybe you started taking one language and you hated it, so you switched to a different one. Sometimes the system gets stuck thinking that you're still taking that first language, even if you've been taking another language. Maybe your Area 3 region requirement, or for my pre-major people, maybe you're doing your 3 history course cluster requirement. If you started in one region or one cluster, and then you switch to a different one, sometimes the system doesn't catch up with you on that. Like we said, in both of these cases, the program picks up whatever you were first working on, and everything else is there. It's just hanging out in the all credit accepted section. So always look there if you think you're worried that you took a class that didn't actually fulfill in that area. It's still there if you still got credit for it, as long as it was approved on the major requirement sheet. You just might not be able to see it in that area. That's totally normal. A little annoying, but totally normal. And in most cases, it will fix itself in time for graduation. We'll usually catch it when we do our final round of grad checks. But if it's getting like to your last quarter or so, and maybe it's holding you back for some other reason, maybe you're double majoring and you need to let that other class go for some particular reason, you can always request a petition for us to switch it around. But most of the time you don't need to. This can also happen when you're looking at one course that can be used in multiple areas. So a common thing that happens is if you've taken Global 148 or Comparative Literature 170, I think it's 1. Those are 2 that are just on the top of my head, because those courses have been approved in the past to apply both for Area 2A in the Global 148 option or example, or it's been approved to fulfill across 2 different areas. We can actually be flexible on how you want to choose to apply it, and you can use that as you strategize the rest of your classes you want to complement it with in those areas. But the computer will usually just stick it somewhere, and then sometimes it doesn't stick it in a place that you want it to stay. We can use a petition to fix that too. So just kind of be on the lookout for that. And then otherwise, if you're checking, if you're not sure if a class that should be counting is counting, check your course numbers really carefully. So even something like Sociology 155 versus Sociology 155A, the letters typically do matter. So just make sure you're looking really carefully on the major sheet to see if that specific class was actually approved, because they might be totally different topics where one does work for a major, the other one doesn't. So that could be what's happening as well. in which case it'll go in his upper division unit, so that's always useful. The other common issue is courses that you intend to use by petition. So if you took a course that you intend to use by petition, maybe you took something here at UCSB that was on the list that I make of additional courses to use by petition. Remember, this is a Google document that kind of looks like this, and you can kind of find substitute courses if you need extra options off the main menu. You can get to this on the registration resources section of our website underneath the undergraduate tab. So maybe you took something for that. So it's essentially, it's been approved conditionally, or maybe you took a UCEAP study abroad program and your credits are transferred in finally, you know, 2 to 3 to 4 months after you came back. They don't go into that area automatically. Same for other approved transfer credits if you're coming from another institution, another college. It does not go into that automatically in most cases. The only exception would be California Community College language credits, and GE credits will often go automatically as long as they've been pre-approved, which in a lot of cases they have been by the Office of Admissions. But for global studies, most of the time you're going to have to get a custom petition applied. So you can check that it's there in the all credit accepted area on the bottom of your major and GE progress check. Once you've fully completed the class and you have a final grade on it, keep in mind, has to be a letter grade if you want to use it for a major requirement, right? Other than that one quarter, spring 2020, when we first moved to online instruction, and the campus kind of gave the option to opt out of that and to allow P grades on major requirements. For the most part, you have to do everything for a letter grade in the major, and for sure with a letter grade if it's an upper division class. So there's going to be some directions posted on the petition section of the undergrad advising section of our department website. I know that sounds like a long string of words to take it all together, but basically if you navigate to global.ucsb.edu, I'm going to go actually to the main page so you can kind of see how to navigate there just from the main page. So you go to the undergraduate tab. It doesn't say this just yet, but soon this button will shift and say undergraduate advising. You'll click that button, and then there will be some information posted about how to request a petition. That's you making the request, and then timing wise, it does not happen automatically. It'll be several weeks for it to process depending on when you request it. Once it is processed though, and once it is approved, several weeks beyond that, just because the whole process does take some time. Then eventually you will see it show up in that area on your major and GE progress check as long as it's been accepted. And when you start to make that petition request, there's going to be some materials for you to self-check to see if it's a good course for that area. So once you petition it, you put the request through, very likely, almost 100% sure, it will be approved for that area. It just won't show up for a while. And I guess that's kind of the same thing we're saying down here. One good thing to know, sometimes there are tech glitches even after your course gets approved. If it shows up in your major and GE progress check in that area you were hoping it showed up, but it still looks weird, or it looks like it's not contributing to overall fulfilling that area, like there's not enough classes in that area, just let me know, let the undergraduate advisor know, reach out. We will see if there was something that we just need to fix on the tech side of things. Sometimes that's the case. So recap and just what do you do if you notice a problem not covered on this list? As you noticed, most of the problems on this list can be solved by just checking your major and GE progress check really carefully, especially that all credit accepted section. As long as the course is there, as long as you have a letter grade on it, and as long as it has otherwise been approved to count for major requirements, you can request that petition. Yeah, and then I should just kind of showed you quite briefly how generally to find the petition section of the advising section of our undergraduate page on our department website. More information you can find there, along with sort of the self-check questions to make sure that it's a good course to request a petition for the area you're hoping to use it. But if there's still something that looks weird, if like all of this we've gone through and you're still seeing a problem that seems like outside of what we've discussed in today's video, please reach out to us by email, or you can do a drop-in. It probably is just a quick question where we can take a look at your major and GE progress check with you and try to figure out what is going on. Most likely very fixable. It's just something we need to take a look at together. All right, thank you for watching. And if you do have any further questions on this topic, do please feel free to reach out and let us know.